Wow, that's good. I hope you love plantains because today I'm going to be showing you two of my favorite recipes. The first one is going to be tostones. We're going to be taking those tostones, those green plantains, and we're going to be adding avocado and vegan saltfish to them. And our second recipe is going to be Maduros rellenos, which are sweet plantains, and we're going to stuff those with a vegan ground beef and a little bit of melted cheese. All right, you guys, let's get into the recipe. I'll show you how it's done.
Hey, I'm your host, Shelly Wellness. I'm on this journey to elevate our consciousness around food, and I invite you to join me. On this channel, I'll share recipes created with mindfulness, rooted in wellness. Welcome to the Mindful Plate.
So as I told you, we're going to start with the tostones. Now, the tostones, they're a bit of a process to make. If you ever made green plantain tostones before, you know the peeling and the soaking and the mashing and the refrying. Now, generally, I love doing that, but sometimes I just don't have time. So, Trader Joe's, of all stores, had frozen tostones. I know that there are other products that make frozen tostones, but I was really excited to see Trader Joe's have these. So I bought them, decided to try them out, and y'all, they are good. So this is what they look like when they come out, already flattened and ready for the second refry. So I'm just gonna add some coconut oil into my pan. And we wanna be a little generous with the oil because we want these to fry up nice and crisp. So once your oil is hot, you're just gonna fry this nice and crisp on both sides as if it were the second fry if you were making real tostones. So now that we have our plantains done, y'all, we're gonna slice some avocado, add that avocado to our plantain slices. And then lastly, just top this off with a saltfish. If you saw my last video, then you already know how to make this delicious vegan saltfish. It is not made with saltfish, it's made with hearts of palm. So we're gonna add this on top of our avocado. And y'all, this is perfect. And I love tostones because one, you can eat them by themselves. They're better than French fries, please believe it. But also, if you ever wanna make a sandwich and instead of using bread, especially if you make the sandwich gluten-free, you could use the tostones. You could make tostones and use this as your bread. So you could put veggie burgers inside of here, put that together, whatever you want. But it is absolutely delicious. And that crisp, y'all, oh my God, it's gonna taste so good. I can just smell it already. All right, so here we are, y'all. Here's our finished platter. You see how easy that was? Man, listen, when I don't have a lot of time, I love to make these. They're so easy and they're very filling and delicious. And you get all the things you need. You have that salt from the tostones, the salt from the saltfish, the creamy from the avocado. So I'm not gonna play myself and try and bite this on camera, y'all, but I am gonna cut a piece and just tell y'all how it tastes. All the things. That's good. It's so good. This is good, girl. Really good. Like I said before, if you want to do from scratch and make your own tostones, go ahead. But if you want to save some time but still enjoy your meal, get the frozen ones and just fry them up a second time. It hits. Now, let's get into these Maduros. I promise you Maduros rellenos, and we're going to make them vegan style. Okay, you guys, so now we're gonna get into the Maduros, our sweet plantains. So you're gonna start with your sweet plantains. Now, as you know, plantains can vary in their sweetness. The darker it is, the sweeter it is. Hello, all that good melanin magic. But for this one, we don't want it too dark, all right? Because we still want the plantain to have a bit of firmness. When it's too dark, it gets kind of mushy, kind of sweet, perfect for frying and eating on its own. But if we're gonna be stuffing it, we need it to have some integrity, some texture, and some hold. So we just want it to be a little soft to the touch. Like when you press it, it gives a little bit. And what we're gonna do to prepare our plantains is we're gonna cut off the ends. I wanna shout out this knife that I'm using because it gives me the perfect cut every single time. It never fails me. Thank you so much. So another reason why you wanna make sure that your plantains are just right is because we're gonna have to cut them and peel them. When they're too green or not ripe enough, it is hard to peel. So we're gonna take the knife and we're just gonna make a slit, not too deep, just peel deep along the middle. You can use your nail to guide you and just peel the plantain skin back. And that's when you know it's ready. It just gives the skin freely. That's what rightness does. It allows it to release the skin, not trying to hold on. That's the message, y'all. Let it go. You holding on to stuff, let it go. Don't hold on to it. All right, and then to prepare the plantain, we're gonna take our knife and cut a little deeper slit. And what's gonna happen is as this plantain bakes up, the muscles in the plantain are gonna relax a bit, and that is going to open up and be ready for our stuffing. So because these plantains are going to be baked in the oven instead of frying them on a stovetop, which you can, we're going to add a little bit of oil. So here I just have some coconut oil with pieces of garlic, so I get a garlic flavor. If this were not vegan, then we'd use something like butter, but because it is vegan, we're just going to add coconut oil, and that's going to allow this to brown beautifully while it's in the oven. And of course, give it that garlicky flavor. Oh, layers upon layers, y'all. I'm so excited. And I'm just gonna use some parchment paper to bake this in. Oh, this is so nice. Now this may not matter, but what you see me doing here is I'm taking the plantain and I'm wrapping it in parchment paper. I'm gonna add foil eventually, but I don't like my food to touch foil because the aluminum really isn't good for us. And so I prefer to have the parchment paper there, but because the parchment paper is not stiff enough, I'm gonna add the foil underneath so that when they bake up, they're baking in the position that I want them to. Now, if you don't wanna do all this, you can just put them on a cookie sheet and bake them, but I like to have them set up nicely. And if you didn't use all of your oil, just go ahead, because you don't wanna waste anything, and just dot that onto the plantains. This is gonna give it a beautiful brown. Make sure that you get some into the slit. So now that they're ready, we're gonna put them in the oven, 25 to 30 minutes at 450 degrees. And while this is baking, we're going to get our stuffing ready. We're gonna be making a beautiful tomato sauce with some of our vegan ground beef to stuff these bad boys when they come out. So we're gonna make our sauce. And when it comes to making tomato sauce, you can use a canned one, a jarred one. If you have your own favorite recipe, feel free. Generally what I do is I take a blend of tomatoes, onions, and some pepper. I use orange bell pepper sometimes, and sometimes I use red. Sometimes I use green, depending on the flavor I want. But I want this to be a bit more on the sweeter side. So I'm gonna use our orange, some tomatoes, and some onion. And I'm gonna save a little bit of onion. I'm not gonna blend all of it because I want to also have some onion pieces in there. Now, I blend this a little bit to a fine puree, but I still want some chunks. Now, if you want it to be completely smooth, then let the blender go. But I like to pulse it because I want a little bit of chunk in there. So this is the fun part, y'all. This is where we start to make our sauce. So I always start with a little bit of seasoning first. Now this is green seasoning. And green seasoning is essentially anytime I cook and I have all these little leftover bits and pieces, I take all this and I put it in a blender and I keep it in the freezer. So whenever I want to add flavor to my dishes, I just add this in there. So I'm gonna start with about a tablespoon of this. This is onion, cilantro, some hot pepper. There's a lot going on in this. And that begins to start our base, our flavor. And while that's cooking up, I'm just gonna quickly chop up some onion. I want some onion pieces in there, not necessarily grounded up, but for texture. All right, now that we have that, we're gonna add in our sauce. We're gonna add in a few peppers, just again to have some texture in there. Lastly, I'm gonna add some olives. I really love the flavor this gives. So I'm gonna add this into the sauce as well. Now you wanna remember that that tomato already has a lot of liquid. So we want this sauce to kind of reduce down. And as it reduces down, it's gonna be left with pure flavor. Oh, it smells so good already. It's gonna taste so good. So just cook it again, keep it at like a medium to high heat so that liquid can evaporate and you can be left with the essence of the sauce you're making. Oh, this smells so good. So you may have noticed that I didn't put salt in, and that's because I like for the seasonings that I put in the food to be the main flavor. And then as this cooks down, so as you see, a lot of the liquid has evaporated, and this is where we want it. So at this point now, this is the sauce we want. It is thick enough, it's not too runny, and I'm going to taste it, and that's going to help me decide how much salt I need. That bangs. Mix it, mix it. I'm gonna taste it again. Oh yes, girl. I love when the pot comes alive. That's my favorite part about cooking. It's like you take all these raw ingredients and you put them together and then you just have magic. Oh, this is so good. So if you saw in a previous video, you know that I make my own veggie grounds. This is my ground beef whenever recipe calls for that. I use this. It's a mix of lentils, walnuts, and mushrooms. So I'm gonna now take some of my ground beef and I'm gonna mix it into this sauce. This looks a lot like if you've ever bought textured vegetable protein, it kind of gives that look, but no soy. And we are not about soy in this house, honey. As you know, I have shared in previous videos that I am currently experiencing fibroids, and I'm also currently working to heal them. Thus, a lot of my cooking has changed. So if I was eating any soy products before, I definitely have taken that out of my diet. When it came to try to find meat replacements that were vegan, a lot of them were soy-based, and I couldn't take it. So I learned how to make my own, and this is what I use. And this, my friends, is what we're gonna use to stuff our plantains. Ooh, look at that, gorgeous. It's rolling from the water. We'll put you here, I get it. All right, you guys, so how do you know if your plantains are ready? Well, when they're fully soft. Now, to start, it only takes about 25 to 30 minutes in a 450-degree preheated oven. But also, it depends on your plantain's level of ripeness. So if it's already pretty ripe, it's not gonna take long to get soft. Y'all remember when I said that you can put the slit in it, but as the heat goes in, it's going to help soften and open her up? There we go. So now, because it's been heated through, remember before when it was stiff, couldn't really open it. But now she just comes open just like that, so easy. Now she's ready. So I'm just gonna stuff these with our vegan ground beef mixture. I love when the recipes in my head come to life. And it's so filling because you could eat like half of these with a thing of salad. I mean, if you have a big appetite, then sure. But if you're like meal planning for the week, you could bake 3 of these, take half, and then so now you have 6 of them, right? 6 opportunities to eat this. Serve it with a side salad and you're good. It has everything you need. You have your protein with your lentils in there. You have some healthy fats because of the walnuts. You have that meaty texture because of those mushrooms. And then you have some starch and some sweetness from the plantain. So you get all the things that your body needs anyways, plus you get the flavor. I love this. And I love how the plantains just open up. So now we're just gonna add a little bit of cheese, not a lot. So now you see they're all stuffed, y'all. We gotta top with a little bit of cheese. It's essentially ready, but I want that cheese to kind of melt a little bit. So we're gonna put it back in the oven. Oh, girl, let that heat just get it for about 5 minutes, and we'll take it back out. All right, you guys, so now we have our baked plantain. I have a little bit of melted cheese on that. So I just want you to consider that this particular recipe as it is more on the creamy side with the cheese, with the plantain, and even with the sauce and the beef is a bit softer. And I want a little bit of crunch. So I'm going to add a fresh kind of pico. So I have some red onions, some tomatoes, and some cilantro. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of lime juice and a little bit of salt. Boom. And what this does is it gives me some crunch so I can have on top of my Maduro relleno, but it also gives me some freshness and some color. So this is a Maduro relleno. And because I'm always trying to increase my fiber intake, we have a lot of fiber going on inside this plantain already because we have some lentils and our veggie ground beef. And I still want to up the ante, so I added some kale salad. And this is a nice serving suggestion. If you're meal prepping, you can bake this stuffed plantain and then eat it with a side of kale salad for a really, really healthy meal. So I'm gonna put a little bit of lime juice on this. Let's try it, y'all. Wow. Wow. Y'all. You don't even miss the meat. That's what's so wild about, man. Listen. Shout out to God for the divine wisdom instilled in me when it comes to cooking. This is so good. And for everything God grows, this plantain, these walnuts, this lentil, it tastes just like the beef. All right, you guys, so that has been our vegan ideas for plantains 2 ways. Our tostones with vegan saltfish and avocado, and our Maduros rellenos, our sweet plantain stuffed with our vegan ground beef. If you like this video, like it, and if you know someone who wants to eat this, including yourself, share it. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, because I'm telling you, going plant-based does not have to be boring, okay? All right, you guys, I will see you next time, and as always, you have been watching The Mindful Plate. Eat well and be well. Bye.